Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. One thing I'm terribly disappointed about during our current inflation or maybe stagflation is that I underestimated how stubborn Americans will be. I had thought in 2021 when the stagflation started, I really was optimistic that we would change our ways of life and conserve a little bit more. So here in the United States, I believe something like 50% of all food ends up in the landfill. Not only that, people eat way more than they need to, right? I don't see too many people actually starving. Not having their favorite foods, they might, but I read somewhere, because I was curious how they measure hunger. Some 40 million Americans so-called go hungry. And the way they measure it is if they've ever wanted to eat anything at all, and they don't have access to it at the moment, right? So even somebody who's a billionaire who just doesn't happen to have their assistant nearby who can pick up the phone and say, oh my god, I want Five Guys, right? That apparently qualifies as hunger in the United States. Go read up about it. Go read about it. And here in America, we spend about 6% of our income on food. It's the lowest around the world. My family's from Taiwan. Hardly anybody starves to death there. They spend 20% of their income on food. In most countries, that's about the norm, actually. And most developed countries, I should add, similar to Taiwan or Japan. And it really shows. When you go to some of these countries that are spending 20, 30, 40% of their income on food, it really shows how much they treasure every bite, right? Hardly any food ends up in the garbage can. And even if we just stop wasting that 50%, right, that would neutralize most of the inflation, probably more than we had in the last 2 years. I thought that's the direction we were going. Another annoyance of mine is that sometimes I want to record a Peter Shit show. I love to do this in nature, and then all of a sudden somebody wants to idle their car. Sometimes it's not even a very well-maintained car. It's spewing smoke all over the place, and it's noisy. When I saw gas prices hit $7 a gallon last year thanks to Putin, I thought that was the end of that. I kind of got excited for a moment. I wasn't using a lot of gas at the time. You got to remember, I was living out of my car at the time. I had the option of literally having a 30-second commute into the office every day, and I had ways around it. In fact, there was a time when I kind of hunkered down and left my car in my favorite parking spot and walked to work pretty much. I got a lot of exercise, and it was really nice. And I thought that was the end of that. But then I remember there was one night when gas prices jumped $1. And I remember thinking how fortunate I was of not having to drive around very much at the time. I go outside to record a Peter Shit show. I didn't call it a Peter Shit show at the time. And before I could even press the record button, vroom, 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 and I thought it was the end of it. People pulling up to a red light and revving their engines to show off and all that. Not to mention, I thought more people would be open to the idea of using public transport or maybe even carpooling more, and it would be a great way to network with more people. But I was a little bit too optimistic for Americans. Americans are very stubborn. And unfortunately, we're going to go there the painful way rather than explore something new, and that's just a shame in my opinion. I think we should enjoy wasting less and conserving more. So you guys may have noticed, well, I've been making bismuth art for 8 months now, and bismuth right now is, including the premium, you can buy it for about $7 a pound. On the spot market, it's probably closer to $5 a pound. And I was showing a friend how to do this, and she laughed at me for how much conservation I practice with the bismuth. I gather up all the dust and I put it back into the furnace. Even the paper towels that I use to wipe down my burner, I throw into the furnace to burn with the rest of the bismuth to kind of coagulate it all together. And she thought bismuth must be really valuable. She's like, how much is this stuff worth? Like this bar, it's 10,000? and I told her it was like $70, and she laughed at me. And I said, well, you realize how rare this stuff is, right? It's only twice as common as gold. And unfortunately, we have the mindset that if we could afford to throw it away, we don't care about it here in the United States, right? And I really did think when I first heard the word inflation 2 years ago. You gotta understand, at my age, I've never heard of the concept of inflation, let alone hyperinflation. Well, I have, because I dated a girl who came from another place in the world that had hyperinflation. I've never experienced it myself, and I thought it was a blessing in disguise, but Americans have completely thrown away this blessing in disguise, and because of how stubborn we are, or more accurately, how much we can get away with it, right? Most Americans are maxing out their credit cards, and we're still borrowing from other countries who don't have this kind of mindset, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.